All right, welcome back to part 2 episode of student engagement on the Edu20 podcast.
Two.
Yes. So last time, can you do a quick recap, Courtney? Yep,
Okay,
rewind.
that was me doing the
What did we
rewind.
talk about? What was our topic for student engagement?
Well, we talked about the 3 different levels of engagement and what
Okay.
that could possibly look and sound like in the classroom. We just gave a few examples. We really
Mhm.
want to flesh that out a little more in this episode because this is a hot topic. We also talked about what student engagement is not. And so
Yes,
if you did not check out that episode, you're going to want to go look at and
for sure.
listen to episode 1 because we do cover some, high level stuff there. And now we're getting a little bit more
Mhm.
granular. It was nerdy fun. And so we're going to pick up right where we left off.
All right. So, we're going to talk about the different levels of student engagement and how do we do it in practical ways, because Courtney and I are really privileged to coach a lot of teachers, and we get a lot of the same feedback. And a lot of teachers tend to say, and I was this way, I'm nervous to let go.
Oh, that's just not my style.
That's not my
Shannon.
style.
Don't let
But
go.
why do
I'm
you,
a lecture teacher. I've
right?
heard that before.
Right. And why do you think that? What are some potential root causes for that?
Fear. Fear is the root cause. Insecurity, losing control of your classroom. Nobody wants to lose control of their classroom. And
Nope.
when you let the kids run the classroom in the sense of they're owning the learning,
Yeah.
that's scary. You have to let go of the control.
Yeah.
And so often we hear like that's just not my style, but really it's not about style. It's about giving kids a chance to practice and process content. I feel very passionately about this in case you can't tell.
Yeah.
But it all stems from fear. I really do believe that. Like
Mine did. Mine
Yeah.
did. Because this was when I was a middle school teacher. Most of the students were taller than me.
special place in heaven for her.
Thank you. And I went from anywhere from teaching 80 middle schoolers a day to teaching 153 freshmen a day
Ooh.
one year.
That sounds like
Um,
a definition of hell.
Right. No, it was some of the best years of my life.
I
I
believe it.
loved it. I really loved it. But I was scared to let go because I was scared that I had to give them the information because that test was always looming over our head, and I had to get the content out there. So it was more of content delivery. But also I was scared if you have 37 freshmen packed into one classroom, it can I wasn't as secure, but I think it goes back to what was my classroom management?
Mm.
Was I getting them just involved and participating? And then how could I turn it over and let them go
Well,
a little bit more?
I'm glad you mentioned that as well because it's not just fear of letting go, it's also fear of time pacing.
Oh,
Because
yep.
I have
You're
so
right.
many things I've got to get to. And if
You're
I
right.
give them time to practice this,
You need to write that down. That's
I'm
good.
gonna thank you. I'm get my handy dandy notebook out.
Okay.
But it could be a fear of I don't have time for this. Because if we do embed these turn and talks and these deep accountable, activities, that takes time. So a lot of it could be fear of losing time to have these activities where students actually dig in a
Yeah.
little deeper.
So this episode is just going to be a really quick one on what are some ways that we can work our way into that engagement for learning?
Mm.
How do we make that happen? Because it's not just a magic fix. It actually takes skill. So whether you're a teacher or whether you're an instructional coach or leader who coaches teachers, here are just some practical ways. And the first one that I would suggest is really just work on some basic management structures
Mm.
on, do your students know how to stop and turn and talk? Who do they even talk to?
And just transitioning. Like, hey guys, we're getting ready to turn and talk. You're gonna have 30 seconds.
Oh, using
Ready?
timers.
We're getting ready to turn in 3, 2, 1. Partner A, go. I'm setting a timer and not just an audio timer. It needs to be visual because there's something about the kids seeing that gives them a sense of urgency.
That's true.
So you're going to want to use some timers and just train them. And counting down is really effective. Like, again, it gives them like, oh, I got to hurry up.
Right.
So management, we said this last episode, that is the base level of engagement is
Mhm.
making sure you have procedures in place. They cannot turn and talk if they don't know what the expectation is. I myself, I love to use non-examples. So a lot of times before they would work in partners, I'd be like, okay, so we're getting ready to work in partners. What does that look and sound like? Does it sound like you smacking your partner over the head? No. So what does it sound like? And then I would have them explain. So a lot of times just showing them non-examples
Right.
Sometimes just for expectations and management,
Mhm.
it went a long way because then that mitigated them doing exactly what I told them not to do
Right.
in
So
my mind.
modeling is great. This is why I go back and say, though, it's not helpful just to tell a teacher, hey, you need to increase student engagement because we've got to look at, or if you're a teacher who is nervous about student engagement, just start there. Just get those management routines down and then bringing them back whole group and getting their attention. Even doing a countdown, I need everybody's eyes back on me in 3, 2, 1, or having that call and response. That is the perfect place to start and to try. Once you're comfortable with that, then you can level it up to those partner discussions to what are some other examples that we can do just to get students involved?
Well, can I tell? I'm telling myself and tell a story.
Those are the best,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. So I was that teacher again. We always say we stand before you not because we are the all-knowing. It's because
Nope.
we messed up a lot of things in the
All the time.
classroom, and then I mean, even after we got out of the classroom, we messed some things up, and then we just figured it out,
Yeah.
by trial and error. But back in the day, I was that teacher who was trying to be cutesy, and I let my kids talk, but once I figured out like I need one to go first, one to go second,
Hmm.
I would do things like, oh, the person closest to the ceiling will go first. Or, oh, the person with the longest fingernails, you'll go first. Well, my kids ended up arguing more about who had the longest fingernails. Her fingernails aren't even real. They spent more time talking
Taking
about
off
the
their shoes to
freaking
see who was
finger.
really high,
Yes.
taller.
Well, their shoes have an inch sole on them. They spent more time talking about that than actually talking about the content. So when I discovered something as simple as like Kagan's chat mats,
Hmm.
just saying, okay, shoulder partners, partner A is going first. You have 30 seconds, then partner B. Or we're going to start with number one and then number two, then number three, number four, if you're sharing things in a list. So little things like that it freed me up and it still made sure I held them accountable to their learning
Hmm.
because each person had a role in the learning. And I'm not talking about a word wizard role. If you didn't find out about the word wizard, go watch our last episode on engagement. I'm talking about, let's say I've got 4 questions on a social studies text.
Yeah.
I could give each kid one of the questions to answer, and then they've got 30 seconds each to share out their answer. So they're all held
Nice.
accountable to the thinking.
Yeah.
They're not just been given 4 questions, go work on it as a group, because you know what's going to happen if I tell them to go work it on it as a group.
Right.
It's going to become one person doing all the work. What is it that you say? I'm going to invite my group mates to my
Oh
funeral.
my gosh, you know that when you ask questions in class or when you do group projects, there's usually one or two who's doing all the work. And we're going to invite the rest of them to our funerals so they can let us down one last time. Rip.
Absolutely.
Right.
Rip.
But speaking of group work, that's when it got a little scary for me because it feels harder to let go of control to these kids while monitored. You can't be at 28 seats at one time.
Mm-mm.
How did you transition? You said originally you would give them roles like word wizard or timekeeper or things like that, but they weren't always learning the content. What were some strategies that you used that kept all kids learning in a group? And I'm thinking one about the markers that you told me about.
Well, I'll have you share that. I do want to tell you that, and everyone listening, segmenting is grossly underrated. Segmenting your lesson. We think, okay, even if we've explained the roles, if they know what they're supposed to be doing, I'm going to turn it over to them for 15 minutes. That's where you go wrong. Everything should be segmented as
Okay, what do
much
you
as
mean by that?
possible. Like, you can't give middle schoolers 20 minutes to answer or even do one paragraph. Like, it's just
As a
you've
group?
you've got to segment. You got to say, "Hey, this is the expectation. You have 4 minutes." If they're doing the work, you can extend the time. You
I
can always
gotcha.
extend the time,
I
right?
gotcha.
But what you can't do is when you give them 20 minutes to do something, I've got one kid who's finished in 2 seconds. I've got one kid who's going to take all 20 to write maybe one sentence. Segmenting helps you to keep the pacing together and the students on track. And I know we all work at different paces, but I think that teachers forget that you can segment, you can chunk your lesson, you can chunk the text. That helps you to keep the kids in the same place relatively,
Yeah.
but also helps you to monitor. All that free time becomes disastrous. That's when you will lose control over the classroom.
That's a really great point. Chunking
But
and
you
segmenting like
tell
that.
them what I say about markers, because clearly I say something important.
No, there was some so when you're having students work in groups,
Oh yeah.
we want to keep them all accountable. We want to we say a lot, we want to eliminate the opt-outs. When I first started trying it out, I would have all of the groups give them a big sheet of paper and have them write down answers as a group. But then what would happen? It was the same one or two kids writing down all the answers. But you told me that you learned to give each of your kids a different color marker and have them all answer and with a timer. And then they had to read and evaluate and look at each other's answers. And I thought that was a brilliant way just because just even that different color kept them all accountable and interacting. You could tell at a glance because keeping all the groups on tasks too at the same time, that's a big, like, teachers are so skilled. Like, we're managers, but we're also we're coaches, we're cheerleaders, we're all the things,
Doctors.
but we're also checking for understanding. So I thought that was just one simple way just to hold all kids accountable, but it's content based. It's not just let's do this cutesy activity. I thought that was really smart.
I wanted to build on for something you just said. You talked about the accountability piece. So often when I was in the classroom, I would check students' work for completion instead of comprehension. Like I would just see, did they do it?
That could be a
Because I
whole
was like,
episode.
oh, that means they did it. But that was just compliance. Where the deeper engagement comes in is if I'm truly holding them accountable, I can walk around and see like, oh, this kid's got it. This kid still needs a little support. Let me give some feedback here.
Yeah.
This kid has no clue what they're supposed to be doing. Let me pull them and have a chat. So that the true engagement allows me to check to see where kids are
Yeah.
because it is holding them all accountable. If they work in groups to answer a question, we don't know what they're all individually thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And if we really want to get to that deepest level of engagement, I've got to hold them all responsible and accountable for their thinking. And again, when we go back to the last episode, they're not going to be in that deep level the entire lesson.
Yeah.
We have to have the different levels of engagement, but on those critical activities, if I'm holding them accountable to their learning, it helps me to monitor their understanding.
Right.
And that frees me up. And I'm moving from not just checking for compliance or completion, I'm actually checking for comprehension.
I'm going to say something wild here too.
Uh-oh.
If you are a leader listening to this and you lead meetings or professional learning, it is also important that you allow process and think time for your participants and that you use those engagement moves too, because otherwise that meeting could have been an email.
Adults are the worst, learners,
worst.
especially teachers. Like we are bad learners because we're always critiquing because that is our craft, right? And so if I'm sitting in a PD and they're not holding me accountable, I'm gonna opt out.
I'm checking out.
Think about the cell phone or even having the Chromebook in front of you. Like at any given time, I can do 20 different things.
Yes, you are
And as an
multitasker.
yes, I am because my brain has lots of tabs open at all times. But if you give students an opt out, they'll take it. But if you give adults an opt out, they've already taken it like 20 minutes ago. So
right.
PDs, having deep engagement moments in PDs is just as important as having deep engagement moments with your students.
Yeah.
So leaders, think about that. Like when you're delivering information, I don't care if it's basic information, you've got to have time for those teachers to practice and process that content that you're giving them in your clusters, ILCs, ILTs, ABCs, EDFGs. Make sure that you are embedding those engagement moves and the different levels of engagement in your professional learning sessions.
Then it's not just a delivery information system, it's a learning system.
And it builds your street cred. Let's be real. Nobody wants to hear you need to have more engaging lessons from a person who's really not engaging PDs.
Oh, preach.
Like you're giving me snooze. I know you're giving me snooze fests every month in our PDs,
but you're giving me feedback.
You want me to turn it up and live my best life in front of kids. Model it for me. You go first as a leader. I need to see what does that look and sound like for me as a learner so I can turnkey that and make sure I know what it looks and sounds like for my students.
Right. So just for a quick summary, whether you're a teacher or whether you're a leader, we really suggest start small. If you're not really comfortable with embedding a lot of student engagement, it's probably because you may need to go back to one of those earlier levels because the layers are critical. You can't do it without classroom management. So just shore up those routines, expectations, and procedures. And I love how you said model what it should and shouldn't look like. And then start embedding some of those just participation moves. Allow students to turn and talk. If they know who their shoulder partner or their face partner is, allow them to start turning and talking. Pull out some of those moves.
You can never use too much student engagement.
Right.
So even if they know the procedures, before you transition, go back over what that procedure is, especially like after a break. You know,
Right.
if you're coming off a Christmas break, they get this holiday amnesia thing. So
Oh,
when you
that's so
come
true.
back, it's like we have to
Right.
reteach everything.
Right.
That happens even between weekends sometimes. So there can never be too much
Classroom
classroom
management. Right.
management. Is that what I said?
You said student
Sorry, there
engagement,
can
but I
never
knew what
be
you
too
meant.
much classroom management. I was seeing if y'all are paying attention. Just layer that as much as possible
Yeah.
and remind them, model.
That's a good
That's
point.
so critical.
Yeah. And then once you get comfortable with that, letting them turn and talk and bringing them back, again, don't forget those timers and the countdowns. Those are critical.
Visuals, just visuals.
Yeah,
Think
visuals.
about like presenting content, that piece of the evaluator rubric in some states, they have to have visuals. Kids need visuals. We live in a very visual world.
You do better with
So
visuals.
so make sure that they can see what's coming. I mean, and again, leaders
Right.
have good visuals.
Yeah.
Anything we ask teachers to do, we should be doing too. So
Right.
we have to go first.
And then once you get that participation, the involvement level down, then start finding those 1 to 2 critical moments in a lesson where every single kid has to be practicing or processing content. And that's the engagement for learning. Just try it. Try it out once a week. Increase to the next lesson, and see how that goes. But really look at the difference that it makes on their learning and the outcomes. And that's where it gets really exciting. So start small. That's our advice.
Absolutely. And again, even if it's just once a week, like just try something different. Because if we never turn it over to them, why are they even in the room? I'm talking to space. I've got to make sure that they're absorbing what we're teaching. Because if not, why are we there?
Right. So we hope you found that helpful. We will link some resources in the show notes that we have on student engagement, some links to our blogs, and then we have a chat mat that you can even look at to see that shows like face partners, shoulder partners, 1, 2, 3. There are lots of resources like that out there, but we'll link some of ours in that we use in our own PDs because we try to practice what we preach. But hopefully you found this helpful. Let us know and join us the next time we get together for our next priority skill, and stay tuned.
Thanks.